When I became besotted by the game of golf in my teens, there were no videos on computers. There weren't any computers. And so YouTube wasn't available. But where I learned to play was by going to the library in Stirling and looking at every book twice, trying it, mostly failing. But it was a wonderful schooling for me subsequently and for the last 50 odd years of teaching golf, because I've tried everything that's ever been written about a golf swing. And one of the authors was a wonderful golf instructor called John Jacobs, a British man. And he was a very fine golfer in his own right. He, in fact, played on the Ryder Cup at one point. But he was most famous for his teaching of the game. And he made a series, more than one series, of black and white TV shows, which I was just totally enthralled by. And those black and white shows actually color my teaching to this day. And for the reason which follows, when I entered the apprenticeship of the PGA, the materials that they gave me to learn how to teach were almost taken verbatim from his wonderful book, Practical Golf. And so I was somewhat familiar with these things even before they gave me those materials. And although there are elements in his book about the way that golf clubs and balls come together and the effect on the ball flight that have been proven not to be quite as he had described them, there are so many things in there of value because it's so practical, hence the name, that I think it's still worth keeping in my list. And obviously there's a personal preference as well because of that history with my involvement in the PGA. So one of the features I'd like to illustrate, he illustrated it beautifully with one of his pictures, was the idea that the shoulder plane of activity is different from that of the arm swing. There was a square to square method book that came long after he wrote Practical Golf that sort of intimated with photos that the shoulders would turn steeply enough that they would be pointing down toward the ball. That's just not even physically possible. What John Jacobs was showing in the picture I've shown you here is that the shoulder turn is more horizontal and that the arm swing is steeper than the shoulder turn. Now, he's, of course, entirely correct, but I want to say a little about why. At address, we don't stand symmetrically. We're not playing croquet. We stand what I call biased, where the left shoulder is higher than the right and the body is subtly tilted. And so if you think of your spine as the pivot, then the shoulder started higher and therefore would, at the end of the backswing, cross that axis slightly higher. Whereas the arm swing, principally the left arm, has to climb and the right elbow bends. And so the shoulder turn should be flatter than the arm swing. Now, if by chance you get to the point where your shoulder turn is more approaching, pointing toward the ball, then you've got yourself in a bit of a pickle because you're wedged in here. And as soon as you start the downswing, it throws the club down into the ground unless you correct for it. And so we want the freedom that having this shoulder down and back allows us, because that allows us to fold that up. And I talk about the right shoulder as being significant because it's almost like a leaf spring. If you think of a triangle, the shoulder being the point of it and the shoulder blade being the base, it actually at the end of the backswing will fold away from your sternum and there'll be a crease between your shoulder blades. And that's stretching these muscles in a way that's forced really by the momentum of the club, but incredibly powerful if you can keep it until you need it, which is halfway through the downswing. So swinging the club back, as obviously Ernest Jones preferred us to do during the backswing, would give us a chance for that momentum to be built, where the leaf spring is fully engaged, and then as we swing down at the optimal moment, released. And so Practical Golf, John Jacobs.